HAMS. I'm Todd Barber, and I wanted to share with you guys how I make my beer. It's a technique I've evolved over the last couple of years of brewing to produce 5 gallons of beer for a corny keg in about 3 hours in an all-grain, sort of a beer in a basket modified system using a cube. I have to make this video in under 15 minutes so that it will fit on YouTube. So you're going to see a lot of fast-forward stuff, and hopefully you'll be able to pick up some of the techniques and maybe learn something that might be helpful for you in your beer making. First thing I'm going to do is assemble a kitchen. I'm going to do everything around a kitchen sink that doesn't have a stove to show you how you can do this in an apartment or set up at a friend's house. You can also use a traditional stove if you're close to the sink, but I find using an induction cooktop really helps aid in making everything portable. So watch me set it all up. My induction cooker, it's an 1800 watt version. It's about the only kind you can get that plugs into 110. It's fairly inexpensive, although there's different models. This one has a precise temperature control, which I like a little bit. This is my pump. Plug it onto a switch with a controller on it. Is get my reverse osmosis water flowing into the pot because it takes it a little while to fill up. And this is used to keep the basket off the bottom so it doesn't burn from the induction. And I also use a stainless steel bucket heater, and this allows me 2 different types of heat control. One for rapid heating up when I'm trying to get through my mash stages and in various capacities, and one to sort of generally heat everything. This fits in nicely here. So that's the setup. The next thing I'm going to do is go out and work on the grains. Okay, now what I've got is a bucket that I got from Big Lots. If you get one of these, you want to get the type that's unpainted or the stainless steel version, and just a regular 5-gallon bucket that I use to capture my grains. I modified the standard barley crusher with a piece of plastic instead of the wood. It seems to be much easier to clean up. I go to my grain selection here, and I'm going to start with a RAHR pale malt, and you'll see that I don't weigh it. I just measure it in these little cups. A bucket full of your grains and your rice on top. Rice on top is sort of an optional step. You can use your sugar if you're going to use that in your wort later on. You can also use extra grains if you want to go completely all grain. You can also use a little bit of DME if you don't want to. That's for higher gravity beer. With just one bucket, you'll normally get about the reef time will show a plant of about 13 or so if you do a good job. With this extra bucket, I usually get up to about 15, which is my target today. Alright, take through scene 3. Alright, so the water has been filling up. We've got about 3 gallons of water in there so far. I'm going to use a tablespoon of pH 5.2 stabilizer. That's because I'm using reverse osmosis water, but I'm going to mix some of our Venice water with it. Tap water, so I'm mixing reverse and tap, and I'm doing that so I basically get some of the salts that we have in our natural water. We have pretty good water here in Venice, so by combining the two, I'm getting the chemistry that I'm looking for here. Basically, once I get the water up to about 5 gallons, I'm okay to turn the bucket heater on. Start to recirculate the water. Just check to make sure that the water is recirculating well. You got a pretty heavy end on that, so it stays in by itself. Circulate go until we get it to the target level, and I'm just going to put the bucket of grains inside, and you'll see the next steps. About 130 degrees, which is about where I want to start my strike. I'll put the grains right inside. And then I'm going to take the pump, put it right in the center, kind of work a hole down into the middle of the grain so that it's kind of penetrating all of the grains. Keep working it until it gets to the bottom of the basket. That'll force it sort of up and back through and evenly throughout the grains. Now at first I'm going to run it pretty rapidly through it till the grains expand on the way up. Then eventually once I get up to the temperatures I want, I will slow that down. Otherwise the grains will keep swelling and expanding too much, and you can get a little bit chance of something come over the top and have to waste a little bit of your grain. 140. I'll go ahead and put this rice on. Now that hole that went through is going to continue to allow this to penetrate down. And then I'm going to use just a little clamp. Actually, if I were to redo this, I would actually have a cock valve on this side of the pump, but since I don't have one, I just use this little bit of clamp here to slow it down. Once it starts to fill up to the point that it gets to the top of both of the pans, so I'm getting the maximum amount of space I can, again, because I'm shooting for a higher gravity beer today. I add a little more water. My water is now dropped down to about here. You can't see inside the pot because the grains are expanding up. So I'm going to bring those back up. The one caution I would say is if you're stacking grains like this, make sure that you don't add so much water that if you did have a power outage, that the grains draining down would overflow at the top. The color's developing nicely from the crystal malt. This to my various strike temperatures. I pretty much have found the best thing to do is start the lower range of about 142 and sort of over about a 30-minute period of time move it all the way up till it gets to the top of your range. And then check your gravity, and then I'll sort of hang out maybe a degree or two below the top of my range, usually around 158 to 160. And then when I get the SG level that I want, I'll bring it on up to 170 to go ahead and sparge out the grain. I'll give you an idea of what's going on in the pot here. On the temperature tracks coming up. This has been a pretty fast mash. We are up to a brie reading of about 8.5, so I know I've got some time to go. I'm not sure how much of that we missed. Okay, it's dripped down. We have hops in this container right here in the filter bag. That's our bittering hops. We're circulating. We're at a temperature of 190 and climbing. At the same time, we're still sparging out. The water's still coming from the top, going to the bottom. And if you can see inside the debris line there, that's about where I'm shooting for water-wise. So we've probably got half a gallon left to drain there, and I'm going to put just a little more water in it. Sorry, we might have missed a clip there of some of the process steps we've done. I'll go over it again in case we missed them. Inside this, which is now empty except for a hops bag with about less than 1/3 of an ounce, maybe a 1/5 of an ounce of hops in it, so that when that bag expands it'll still come out of the top. This hot water is going to go directly into this. I'm going to throw this into the creek or a water source. You can put it into your pool, into an ice bucket, wherever you want to get it mostly cool. Once it's cool to the touch, I'll bring it into a large refrigerator and leave it for 2 days. Over that 2-day period of time, some of those dry hops will absorb into it, and it'll completely break your second break and have nice crystal clear wort that you can siphon off, start your primary fermentation from a cold temperature, moving it to a warmer temperature, which will be your fermenter, instead of starting warm and going cold. Water through here. I'm just going to continue to. Now my pot, because I was using water, is pretty much clean. Just at the right target now. To get the very last bit of juices out of this grain here, I am going to turn this sideways a bit. 215 degrees, so now another thing's going to start to happen. So I'm going to give up any more sparging. You want to take advantage of that as long as you can, but at some point you're going to have to start working in your beer, and I know we're getting close to the first break. So I simply take my grains off of the top, put them back in that container that I sparged them out with, Put them along with my rice, and I'm going to carry that on out when I go out to the creek to get rid of it, dispose of it. Rinse off my rack, and I can put that away. No longer need it. Break starting to occur a little early. And then I'm going to put in my flavor hops, which are going to be a German noble hop called Hallertauer. Average size of the flavor hops that I'll use on pellet form. I find the pellets just to be so much less messy than the leaf hop, and I haven't noticed a difference in flavor. Tried them both. This hop bag that you get at Home Depot for paint filter will do the same whether you're doing leaf or pellet. Just a matter of the amount of leftover hops you have at the end of the day and cleaning time. So I hit a boil. Then I'm going to throw the Whirlflux Irish Boss in. 220. I set it just below 220 so that if I do catch a phone or something, it doesn't boil over on me until I've had a chance to skim it off. And then once you're set up, you got everything ready, go ahead and go all the way up to 220 so that you know that you're going to get a boil coming on pretty soon. Okay, we are now coming up at 220. You'll start to see a boil forming here. Get it up here a little bit. You'll see the circulation of the pump kind of keeps it moving on one side. It'll start to accumulate a pretty thick head as it starts to boil here. I want to get that off before I put the Whirlflux in because I basically don't want to be scooping out the Whirlflux. I want it to do its job. So this will be the last bit that I take off the top. I want you to see how clean this beer is, even at this stage. It's just a nice, clear, really well developed. Ready for the Whirlflux. Hops have swollen up there, little green teeth coming right off of them. And basically at this stage, all I got to do is get that tablet dissolved, and I'm ready to go straight to the pot. Still at 220 degrees. This is where your time savings comes in. Not having to set up a chiller to deal with the maintenance of a Wort chiller. I just love being able to do my second break right in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'll live on the water. I'm going to hang it off the dock with a string for about 3 hours. And then I'm going to put it in a larger refrigerator, cold crash it if you will. It'll drop out to about here. I should get about my target is to get 5.5 gallons of crystal clear liquid off the top. And now maybe 5.25 gallons. That'll give me a little bit of space for the yeast to do its job and transfer it from my primary directly into my corny keg. And I'll be showing you that at a later part how I do that. The reason why I had to switch over here is to turn my pump off at this moment. Put the pump wire directly in. It will start to transfer on its own from gravity, but now I'll speed it up. Out there to the last drop. Squeeze out my air from the top. Connect your cap. And the cap does need to be pretty tight. Okay, and then turn it sideways. Turn it sideways to make sure that that lid now is underneath the liquid to do the final sterilization. 5 minutes before it goes in the creek, so during that time I will disconnect my beer line. Doesn't even require soap typically, just a nice, if you do it right now, when the pot's still hot, it hasn't had a chance to dry out, it rinses beautifully clean. Start around the top with your water. Some of the grain will stick to the very top barrier. And hold it upside down. The grains will just peel away from the side and work your way down.